And speaking of that, our final blizzard of reviews for probably this year blew in this morning. The embargoes for reviews of Macs using the new M1 chips broke this morning. Let me get two of the devices out of the way before we focus more on the meat of the interesting stuff, which, in my opinion, is the MacBook Air. I'll include links to these reviews in the show notes, even if we don't delve into all of them deeply. At The Verge, Chris Welch says the Mac Mini with the new M1 chip is a mixed bag. Existing apps run well, and the price is certainly appealing, but with RAM limited, bizarrely to 16 gigabytes, and the inability to upgrade that RAM, and since it doesn't support external GPUs, could you really run this as your main machine? His conclusion, though, was mostly positive. Quote, "Spending a few days with the 2020 Mac Mini has shown me that it's a barn burner of a miniature desktop PC. It outperforms most Intel Macs in several benchmarks, runs apps reliably, and offers a fantastic day-to-day experience whether you're using it for web browsing and email or for creative editing and professional work. That potential will only grow when Apple inevitably raises the RAM ceiling and hopefully brings back those missing USB ports. The $699 starting price is tempting, but most people will be better off upgrading to 16 gigabytes of unified memory, which puts you at $899. Doubling the default 656 gigabytes storage makes that cost climb higher to $1,099. But even then, the price-to-performance ratio for the Mac Mini has never been better than with this changeover to Apple Silicon. Even if you ignore iPhone apps completely, the transition is off to an impressive start considering just how smoothly everything comes together. And just as ever, the Mac Mini's flexibility is what makes it special," end quote. Also at The Verge, Nilay Patel tackled the MacBook Pro with the M1 chip, and he concurred. Great performance, great display, great battery life, but again, why is RAM limited to 16 gigabytes? And also, this kind of got lost in the shuffle of the original announcement, but only 2 USB ports, only 2 ports, period? Only 2 on a Pro machine. Guess I'm going to be holding on to this last MacBook Pro with actual ports and SD card reader and HDMI, etc., until it literally is on its last legs. Anyway, Nilay's conclusion, quote, "There are 2 things to say about the 13-inch MacBook Pro with M1 chip. 1, the M1 and the work Apple has done to make a difficult processor transition seamless is a remarkable success. And 2, this particular MacBook Pro doesn't necessarily seem like a worthwhile upgrade over the MacBook Air with an M1 chip. Yes, it offers slightly better sustained performance and a little more battery life than the Air, but I would happily trade back those seconds of faster rendering time on the Pro for the hours of frustration caused by the touch bar. And if you have much more serious performance needs, it seems likely that you might want more than 2 ports, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and only 1 external display. So this machine is a tweener, an excellent, fascinating tweener, but a tweener nonetheless," end quote. But on to the meat of the matter. Let's turn to Devendra Hardawar's impressions of the MacBook Air, which, you remember, you can only get with Apple Silicon these days. He says, "It's incredibly fast. There's no fan noise, decent gaming performance for all of that, the usual great keyboard and trackpad, but let's come back to the performance." Quoting extensively now. "Apple's new MacBook Air is stunningly fast. It's raring to go the instant you open its lid. Want to browse the web? Watch it load bloated sites faster than you've ever seen on a laptop. Want to play some games? Step back as it blows away every ultra-portable with no fan noise to get in the way. And if you need to take a break, don't worry, it's got enough battery life to last you all day. Using the new MacBook Air is like stepping into a new world where we can demand much more from ultra-portables. macOS Big Sur, the 17th edition of Apple's long-running desktop OS, is fully optimized for the M1. You can feel that while merely browsing around the Finder and system menus. There's no hesitation when swapping between apps, as I mentioned. It wakes up the MacBook Air immediately when you open the lid. Again, I felt a very iOS-like sense of smoothness here. And during my testing, I never once encountered the dreaded spinning beach ball of death, which I've grown all too used to seeing on my work-issued MacBook Pro from 2017. The M1 also gives the MacBook Air something it's never had before: decent gaming performance. Apple's system on a chip offers up to 8 GPU cores. The base MacBook Air only has 7, by the way. And from my testing, it blows away Intel's integrated graphics. I was able to run Apple Arcade titles like The Pathless with ease at 60 frames per second. Everything ran as smoothly as on my gaming PC. I suppose that's not a huge surprise since Apple's A series chips have always delivered solid performance on iPhones and iPads, but it still feels genuinely strange to have an ultra-thin machine like the Air running complex 3D titles without breaking a sweat. It even managed to play Fortnite at around 60 frames per second while running at 1400 by 900 pixels with high graphics settings. Another shocker, the MacBook Air delivers this performance without a fan. It just relies on a heatsink and passive cooling like the iPad. The M1-powered MacBook Air feels like an enormous leap forward for Apple in every way. But should you dump your current Mac for it right away? That's a bit more complex. While it's far faster than the last MacBook Air, that's still a solid machine that'll last you for years. If you've got a system that's several years old, or you're looking to move over from an aging Windows laptop, the Air is certainly compelling. While it starts at $999, I'd recommend going for the $1,249 model for 256 gigabytes of storage and an 8-core GPU. Both models come with 8 gigabytes of RAM, but you can upgrade to 16 gigabytes for an additional $200. That's worth springing for if you plan to use the Air for serious work. One thing is clear now. With the M1 chip, Apple finally has a way to truly differentiate Macs from Windows PCs. Now there's more of a reason to opt for a Mac beyond a slightly different OS and Apple's excellent build quality. The M1 chip makes the MacBook Air one of the fastest ultra-portables you can buy today, and even the biggest Windows fans will have a hard time denying that, end quote. Apparently, The Verge came very close to giving the Air a coveted 10 out of 10 review. Dieter Bohn says it's the most impressive laptop he's used in years. Over at TechCrunch, Matthew Panzarino has this interesting section, quote, "Much ado has been made of Apple including only 16 gigabytes of memory on these first M1 machines. The fact of it, however, is that I have been unable to push them hard enough yet to feel any effect of this due to Apple's move to unified memory architecture. Moving RAM to the system on a chip means no upgradability, you're stuck on 16 gigabytes forever, but it also means massively faster access to that memory by chips on the system that need it most. If I was a betting man, I'd say this was an intermediate step to eliminating the concept of RAM altogether. It's possible that a future, far future, this is the play for now, version of Apple's M-series chips could end up supplying memory to each of the various chips from a vast pool that also serves as permanent storage. For now, though, what you've got is a finite but blazing fast pool of memory shared between the CPU cores, GPU, and other system-on-a-chip denizens like the Secure Enclave and Neural Engine, end quote. This all suggests, as we've been saying, that Apple jumped to their own chips not because they had to, but because this presents an opportunity they couldn't pass up. Apple has the potential, according to these reviews, with Apple Silicon to redefine and run away with portable computing in the next decade. As Owen Williams, who is my go-to laptop nerd, tweeted, quote, "These reviews have me very optimistic about how Apple's ARM-based M1 chips are going to shake up laptops in a big way. I think given Apple's history with gaslighting people over faulty Macs in the last few years, it should make anyone hesitant to give them money for this first generation, but it's exciting to see them trying again," end quote.